This video was made possible thanks to the Swayinghill Drum Circle. Hey folks, it's Teddy from Swayinghill here. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the second episode of the Swayinghill Snare Shelf. We're on the first Friday of each month. I'll feature a quick demo of one of the snare drums that's currently in the Swayinghill Snare Library in its current tuning. However, if there are enough likes and comments on a particular snare, I'll do another video displaying its tuning range after all 16 snares have been demoed. Now, on the last episode, I featured Brown Sugar from Hendrix Drums. The link to the video is in the description below. And on today's episode, I will be demonstrating one of my homebody Ballad snare drums from Ludwig. What you're going to hear is straight from the mics to a Focusrite Sapphire Pro 40 right here, and an Audient ASP800 connected via ADAT with no EQ or compression. The mics will be in the description below. Now, as usual, since we're talking about snare drums, what snare would you like to add to your own collection? This includes any custom snare ideas you may have in mind. So go ahead, go crazy in the comments.
One more thing.
If you dig the idea of this new series, please go ahead and click like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of videos just like this one. Now let's go ahead and get this demo started. So that's the Ballad snare. What did you think?
Damn, boy. Damn, boy, he's thick. Boy, that's a thick-ass boy. Damn.
Well, I think it's worth nerding out over. So, like I said earlier, this snare is one of my homebody snares, meaning it didn't really go out to many gigs, but it still has its uses here at home. In this case, the use of this snare is as a ballad snare. And what is a ballad snare? Well, let me ask you this, especially to you musicians that's watching. Do you ever pay attention to how a snare is tuned in a ballad? If you've answered no, take a listen and focus on the snare drum in the mix. Usually in a lot of cases in ballads, the snare is usually tuned low to create a different sound palette for a heavier feeling groove. Or it can be even more of a texture thing, i.e. the snare wires being a little bit more loose than normal. For example, if you get a chance, listen to some of Al Green's recordings, such as How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, or Let's Stay Together, or Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, or even Michael Jackson's Human Nature with Jeff Porcaro on drums. This tuning style is also very popular in country music as well. Now, you're probably wondering, what about modern songs? Those are really old songs from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Well, check out songs like Lady Antebellum's Need You Now, or Running Away by Wolfpack, or my personal recent favorite, Distance by Yamaha. All those songs have low-tuned snares. Heck, even a drummer named Chris Daddy Dave made the ballad snare thing popular in modern jazz around 2006, where he uses both a ballad snare as a snare drum and a floor tom. In fact, here's a clip of him playing some Jay Dilla inspired stuff. Check it out. Now, since we're talking about like country and how good ballad tuning sound in country recordings, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but one of these days I'm going to sit in and study a Nashville studio country session. I swear the drums on country recordings are just absolute perfection. For example, check out Dan Needham, Kevin Murphy, and Paul Lime. Just listen to their drum tones. It's like absolute perfection in my humble opinion. Also, to talk a little bit more about this drum is a bit limited in tone, but it makes up in character. I.e., this drum sounds better while playing the center of the drum instead of doing rim shots like I usually do. Doesn't mean you can't play rim shots. No. You can. I mean, Darren King has a similar sounding drum, but he too also does both rim shots and center heads. However, with this particular drum that I own, you just won't get the full tone out of the drum if you only played rim shots. So how did I acquire this drum? Well, back in 2009, a few weeks after I graduated from high school, I visited my middle school band director and he was cleaning out the band instrument storage closet. And while I was catching up with him, I saw two oddly sized snare drums, one of which was a badged Slingerland and the other an unbadged Ludwig. Now, you're probably wondering, wait, if there's no logo or badge on the drum, how could you tell it was a Ludwig? Well, when you window shop a lot and you spend a lot of times with a certain craft, you tend to develop an eye for certain details, even from a distance. So in my case with this Ludwig, I could tell it was a Ludwig because of the lugs and the throw off. So basically, I was like freaking out. I'm like, yo, this drum's dope and things like that. So I summed up the courage to ask if I could take these shells off my band director's hands. And he was kind enough to let me have them. So yeah, shout out to Mark St. Pierre for this very, very dope drum. Now, at the time, neither drum had proper heads, and I wanted to take on this project of making at least one of these drums playable. So in this case, the Ludwig was in better condition, as the Slingerland only had the shell, hoops, and lugs. Skip a few weeks later, and the Ludwig was playable, and I knew I had something special. As I would play the snare on and off, trying to emulate Darren King from Mute Math, I will also try my best to find information about this Ludwig by Googling Ludwig 15x8 snare. And sometime later, the info that I found was that I owned a Ludwig Auditorium Series snare drum. The specs of this snare are based on my Googling. So, like I said earlier, it's a 15-inch wide and 8-inch deep snare drum, and it's made out of mahogany. Meaning its sound specializes in the low end, but it has a really, really nice mid-range. It's also very resonant, because most mahogany shells are. So that means it does need a lot of muffling for what I usually use it for. And on top of that, it has this original strainer and butt end, as well as original lugs, tension rods, and internal muffler. However, again, I don't really use the muffler as I use drum dampeners such as drum dots and true tones. When I first got this drum to the local music shop, they only had a clear Remo Power Stroke for the batter side, and they had to special order the Hazy Ambassador for the snare side. Now, it has an Evans G2 coated head and the same Remo Ambassador on the resonance side. So, yeah, it's kind of overdue for new drum heads. 11 years later, in fact. But a 15-inch drum is not common for a modern drum. Usually 13-inch and 14-inch drums and maybe smaller drum widths are common, but not 15 inches. Pause. And yes, there are exceptions, like the crazy snares that A&F drums put out, but those are really, really dope specialty drums. But yeah, back to this Auditorium snare. Basing on the vintage catalogs that I came across about this drum online, it appears it was made in the late 50s to the early 60s. So the drum is pretty much one of the oldest drums that I own. And I would love to properly restore this drum to its former glory, i.e. before its years of use in a public music program. But I kind of like its look. Like, if this drum could talk, I'm pretty sure it would have so many stories to tell. If this drum could talk. Anyway, Kendrick Lamar reference, sorry. You know what? For the heck of it, here's a pic of the snare in pristine condition. It's just beautiful, don't you think? So, anyways, that's all the information I have on the Ludwig Auditorium. So, thanks for letting me nerd out yet again. Episode 3 will be out for my drum circle on September 25th, and here on YouTube on October 2nd. So if you want to join my drum circle, that's in the description below. And if you'd like to hear any of the other drums and any other tunings, please let me know. So as usual, thank you so much for watching, and here is the Ludwig Auditorium in a musical context. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. Peace.